Hey everyone, so I got Jake Gronsky here with me. We're gonna talk about his career in SEO. I actually had an interesting conversation with him. What do you say, like about 6 months ago?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And he'd reached out on LinkedIn, my favorite platform for everything, just for meeting people, and asked me some questions about navigating SEO in a large company. And he'll talk a little bit more about his company and the challenges he had. And another interesting fact I'd love to Jake to talk more about is that he wasn't a natural marketer. He didn't grow up, wanting to be a marketer. He grew up wanting to play professional baseball, and he did that. So turn it over
Yeah,
to you, Jake. Talk to me about your career and what you're doing now and some of the challenges you have.
yeah, sure. So, thanks, Eli, for that introduction and letting me be on. Yeah, in a previous life, I was a professional baseball player in the St. Louis Cardinals organization. It was a boyhood dream to play baseball for a living. So, for a small sliver of my life, I got to do that, and it was a dream come true. It was an honor to do it, and I wouldn't trade those few years for anything. Now, once I got hit in the face of the real world, I actually found marketing, and specifically digital marketing and SEO through baseball, which is I don't know if you actually knew that, where baseball is a paradigm in itself where you need to have X amount of games go on, whether there's people in the stands or not. But if there's no one in the stands, then you don't have a team. So minor league baseball in general always had these crazy promotions, these crazy marketing ploys, these crazy ads, but ultimately it came down to the idea of giving someone a better experience at a baseball game. And because of that, I was so intrigued by how some stadiums that were 20 minutes away from each other were able to do so much better. So I actually, in my final year playing, I actually took an internship while I was still in the minor leagues in order to learn more about that, just strictly because I was so interested in it. And that ultimately led me to SEO. And now I've been fortunate enough to transition out of an athletic body into more of an SEO body, if you will. And so anyway, I started in an agency setting. I think that is a great learning experience for a lot of new SEOs, because you got to deal with a lot of stuff. You got to learn how to deal with clients. You got to learn how to, bring an ROI. After I made it through that dip, I had a great opportunity to join we're a high growth tech company right now. Fortunate enough, we're a $1 billion privately owned tech company, so that makes it a unicorn. And they only ever had agency to do all their SEO before I came. So I was fortunate enough to really start the SEO program here. And I've been doing it now with the company I'm at now for about 18 months. And there's a lot of challenges, Eli, as you know. I think why I reached out to you is that, I think, have done it better than really anyone, of
I appreciate
being able to implement a system, being able to go about this in a fashion that not only gives deliverables, but actually brings revenue into a company. So, I'm very fortunate that we have a great marketing team. So being able to bring an SEO program was just really the next step for us. So that's, in the long and short of it, went from really, competing on the baseball field to competing on the SERP pages.
And I'm sure not many people can say that.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it really just helped in the competitive standpoint and the intrigue, but I don't know if those are that interchangeable. So yeah, I don't think there's many of me out there from the minor league world. If there are, I would love to connect with them, but I haven't met one yet.
That's interesting. The only SEO thing I've ever noticed with professional baseball is the MLB seems to not be able to make up its mind about how they're allowed to have their websites. So I've seen, like, I'm in
Yeah,
the Bay Area, so there's like sfgiants.com would like redirect to like sfgiants of mlb.com, and then they change their mind and send it back, and it was like 302 redirects, and it was super confusing for Google, because like this is something, I mean, they're also scraping them for data, because like, there's a lot of interest on game day. People want scores, they
yeah.
want times, they want like tickets, and their websites keep redirecting all over the place.
I think that's a great example. Like, that's just a microcosm of the baseball MLB organization as a whole. Like, I mean, of the cheating scandal that just happened, what's going on now with the union, like that's a great microcosm for just the overarching organization. But no, it's so true. The the websites are they could probably use a little bit of SEO love.
So you're saying it's easier to do SEO than be part of a professional baseball league?
I mean, apparently, right? Like, I mean, just
That's funny. So you're a lifelong learner, and one of the things we talked about is I suggested that you start learning code, like get some skills you don't already have, and you took that and ran with it. Like now you know something. What'd you do? What'd you learn?
So, again, there's a disclaimer with that. I think I'm honing the tech skills needed to be as an SEO. But as you mentioned, I mean, that's a dark hole that goes right towards developer, and I know my limitations, right? Like, I'm not a developer. I think the key is what I'm learning and what I'm going with of, pretty much what I'm trying to do is every single week of being able to write my own set of code and rely less and less of the minor details that I'm going to need from our dev team or from, our designer or anything we might need. Because the more I badger them with little tasks, the less they can work on the big tasks that we can actually do. So I think the key of what I'm learning is I need to know enough to be able to hold a conversation and be able to identify how we can help, right? So I think limitations are good with code of being able, hey, I'm not a developer. I'm not trying to do someone's job. I'm not trying to overstep and be like, hey, this code isn't really, up to par, when there might be, 20 different things pulling them in 20 different directions. If I can identify and have a conversation about, hey, here's what we can do better, I think that's where there's opportunity. So it's partly, I want to be more independent. And I think every SEO should be as independent as possible with code. Because like you said, that anyone could do I mean this, in the nicest way, but everyone starts, I guess, with content SEO. That's like the first thing that you run into with SEO. But really what separates people is being able to implement product-led SEO and tech SEO and be able to be that manager between, hey, dev and content. You are that connection. And that, I think, was more important than, learning CSS and and being able to do it all on my own, HTML, just the basic stuff in Java. And that stuff is great, and I'm going to extend that, especially with learning Python and R and different languages. But the key is being able to work with the people that know way more than you, that have done it for 20 years longer than you even started. So I think that's where I'm trying to find that limitation and push a little bit, and then be able to be more of a manager in that sense, rather than the final say on how our dev team works.
That's amazing. And one other benefit that I found is Google is it's a technical product. Google is written by engineers to understand websites, and they're using, so like some of the things that are helpful to like learning how Google works is library science, which is super complicated. The categorization, like how do you bucket content? Like you crawl a page and like, how do you file that? And what sort of database does that go to? That's library science. And then the other part is like, Google has to technically understand a page. So there's no like in the Google algorithm, it's like, oh, if the H1 tag matches the title, check, right? It's an algorithm. It's like, it's a thousands of lines, millions of lines of if else code. And like, as you get more of a technical mindset, it's not that you could just talk to engineers that you need. It's that you can better understand, like, well, that just sounds stupid that Google can't crawl JavaScript. Like, the way I understand Google crawling JavaScript is like, it's actually more expensive. It creates more problems because they have to arrive at the page. They have to run the JavaScript, determine whether the JavaScript changes, and then they have that library science problems, like how do they file it? So yes, they can run JavaScript, but like if you take a technical step back, it makes it more challenging. So they prefer not to have to do that. And that's why I have always found HTML indexes better. And the same goes with images, like use an alt tag for an image. Well, if you think about Google as a technical company and the things they're doing, like they're doing, I don't know if you have an Android or an iPhone. I'm a big Android fan because I'm all Google. Google has, as a part of their camera app, they have Google Lens, which is really cool. You could take a picture of something and then Google identifies it. So that means that Google can probably do that on your website too. So if you're messing around with image alt tags, it doesn't help. So like, I love like learning this technical stuff. It helps you understand Google and your coworkers.
Exactly. I think that's the point of understanding, how Google is retrieving information and showing it. That's actually what led into the, what else we're going to talk about here. Our biggest opportunity we found was once we stepped away from the idea of keyword hunting. Once we realized, hey, actually, we need to think more about the context behind these terms and how Google interprets them, right? So that's, even that alone, like that little shift between information retrieval of, pretty much knowing your entities, right? Knowing what entity you're in, and then seeing how Google will actually translate that was the biggest opportunity we found. And that, I think, is the first step into tech SEO, right? So that alone, even though that's really, for someone like yourself, like that's like basic stuff, but being able to think that way actually will then inform how we can go about in growing discoverability. And that's ultimately what we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, all right, so tell me about the magical growth you've had once you went that direction. The charts you shared were awesome.
No, I do appreciate it. That was one of our better ones for sure. But ultimately, and a little backstory, in order to know the context behind this, as I said, I was fortunate enough to be able to bring an SEO program into, a high growth company where we grow a lot by acquisition, right? So we have a lot of M&A, but we're also a very niche software company. So we're in a no search industry pretty much, right? Which there's actually some positives that people may not realize, and they go, we're going after terms that have 10 search volumes. Like, well, search volume, let's be careful with using that metric as gospel. But also we have a very niche persona that can only buy from us. So we are very much an inch deep, a mile deep, an inch wide type company. So with that, there were some issues when I first came in. A lot of the agency, pretty much their biggest deliverable to us was keyword research. And it was about keyword hunting. And very quickly I saw that was, we have a great content marketing team that does, a lot to do with how much revenue we're able to bring, how much engagement we're able to bring to our site. But the issue that we were seeing is that a lot of that wasn't being reflected in search. So keyword hunting became pretty inefficient for us. Now, what we really, once we started diving into the product, so once I really started learning about product, I think what sparked it for me was there was a page that was cannibalizing a lot of our search, that was really cannibalizing a lot of the traffic that we needed to go elsewhere. And it didn't have the keyword on the page anywhere because it wasn't about the keyword. It was about the functionality behind the keyword. So that's where the thinking really shifted of once we stopped trying to figure out keyword matching and started thinking about functionality of what the product actually can do and how that's being rendered on Google, that's when we started to see these outrageous growths. I mean, I mentioned to you, I showed you a little bit where we were seeing just from Search Console data. And again, very fortunate where we pretty much our SEO is able to sit underneath revenue generation. So, we don't really care too much about the vanity metrics other than early indicators, but these were so off the charts that we were starting to see, 5 times the amount of discoverability that we previously had. And we started to see massive amounts of pipeline generation from these updates. And the thing was, we didn't add that much extra content, right? We thought about what the user actually needs to do. And we thought about how does Google see this product? And that's where, we have seen such growth in a no search industry. And it doesn't have anything to do with search volume. It has to do with, how important that page actually is. And then just exponentially started growing, and it's not slowing down. And that really shifted how we see, how does product and SEO live together, and that's where it's at.
God, don't share your secrets with anybody. There's so much growth here.
No, I mean, again, I think that really the key that anyone could do it though is thinking more through, hey, if you're in an
stay away from that search volume, go,
no, keep going and search. No, but here's the thing with a lower search industry, Google is wrapping up some of these keywords into then a bigger keyword. So it's very hard to understand like a very niche industry. So what we're seeing is once we are able to grab some of those, some more personalized search, and Google started realizing some context behind it, like, oh, hey, this is what this actually means. Now we're actually seeing it go across the board because Google didn't know much about these other aspects of it. So it just rolled up that specific page, and it saw pretty, like, again, we're about functionality now. We're about how can we make the user, interact with us more, right? Have a better experience, but also how can we be more clear about what this software, this product actually does. So Google started wrapping up this page into all different queries, and we started finding traffic, from very, very specific searches that had, that were very much based on what we wanted to show, but we're hardly showing the keyword at all. And that was, I think,
you're converting better than if you were focusing on keywords.
No, absolutely. I mean, because again, I wish there was a better metric than search volume or keywords, because it's not necessarily, again, I don't want to make it seem like that content SEO is not necessary, because it very much, going after specific words can really have a great impact, but it's about what those words actually mean and the functionality behind them. People aren't looking for certain letters in a title tag. What they're looking for is what that page can do for them. And that's when we started to really see these growth.
That's awesome. The longer I've been in marketing, the more I see this, but people always forget that when you go into your job and you become a marketer, you're like, in between when you're working, you're still a consumer, and we don't query these terms. We look for specific things. Like, early in my career, did automotive content, and we optimized for like Honda Accord. But the truth is like, anybody wants to buy a Honda Accord, there's specific things they want. They want to know like safety, the price. They want to know where to get one. They're not just throwing in Honda Accord and hoping Google gives them the right results. So like, we as users, like, we put those specific queries in, and we show our intent. But when we're marketers, we're like, no, this is the head keyword. This is what I need to optimize for. This is where the conversions are going to be, because, my favorite search keyword tool told me that.
No, right. And I think that it definitely goes back to, like, I wish SEO wasn't thought of as simply just keyword matching, because I know 10 years ago, you can get pretty far by doing that. And, especially as more people are utilizing more and more tools, we get off the fact that what we actually need is to show functionality to the user, because that matches the intent that they need, right? So if we can provide that, right, we are now providing a service that showing our page, that makes Google's life so much easier. So I think that was the key for us. And it's something that now we can scale this out, and we can do this across a lot of different queries, a lot of different pages, and we can think about the way we build content for people in a different way. So that to me, bigger than the growth, I think we've now been able to implement it as a systematic approach.
I love it. So I know the answer to this question already. You were not affected by the May 4th algorithm update.
I was not, no. Actually, I think
probably benefited.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think we actually saw a bump from it. We have very like seasonal attributes that happen to our site, but it was weird. As we were doing some of these updates, the Google algorithm updated, and we kept an eye on it for about a week. And I think we've only seen a positive bump. I can't think of even a page that went down from it.
Yeah, to me, that's my favorite part about focusing on product and user experiences. Google is their algorithm, which is a product, which is, it's an algorithm, it's computer code. It's out there to try to do AI and be as like a real user is curating search. And
Right.
you're focused on the real user, eventually Google will catch up. But if you're focusing on loopholes, Google's going to continuously close them. And then you get
Yeah.
affected by algo updates. But if you just skip that whole thing and say, well, this is not a good use of time, it's not going to drive conversions, most of the time you have nothing to fear.
No, exactly. That's where, I think the only people that are vulnerable with, algorithmic updates are the ones that they know that they probably did something a little bit shady, or they're getting away with something. But again, being able to understand functionality better, and in understanding, and I don't just mean functionality of your product, but understanding the functionality of the actual website. Again, that's the basis of what you want to know as a technical SEO. That will open up new doors to really being able to find growth. And we're finding this amount of growth in with these. You're looking at the keyword, the head keyword that has less than 50 searches a month, but there's hundreds of them. And that's where the true value is now you're scaling horizontally with personalized search.
That's great. All right, I'm going to share this interview with everyone that does not believe me that they should be focusing on keywords. So let's pivot to like how you can help other people learn this. Like what would be your best advice for someone that is focused on the content, focused on the head keywords? How do they pivot to start to think about the product and the user?
Well, I would say, the first thing that I did was you got to accept whether something is working or it's not, right? So I think we all do this where we try to experiment, we do a lot of things, and we can never call it a failure because we think that's bad, right? So, when I started at Frontline, where I'm at now, I told myself the only thing that matters is that it has to work, right? So no matter what, I didn't care if it was through content, if it was whatever it was from, I was expected to bring X amount of revenue. So it just had to work. And I think the first thing we got to do is actually go on these SERP pages, actually go on Google and identify how Google views you, not what you want to be viewed as, not what you think you're viewed as, but actually how does Google interpret your pages? And does that line up with how users refer to your products? That's where, if those two dials line up, where if Google is matching how your users interact with you, how they refer to you, how they search for you, that's probably the sweet spot of where you'll find the most opportunity. And you'll find gaps. If you're looking for, something that your users are searching for, right? That they're actually using these. I'm not talking about strictly keywords. I'm talking about, other things. This could be offline, talk to your customers, right? If you are seeing how they're referring to you is not being reflected in search, then that's your own fault, right? Google is, I think an easy way to think about it is obedience, right? If Google is not reflecting how your customers talk about you, now you have a problem, or you have an opportunity where if you match those, then you'll be rewarded. So that's where I first started, is trying to find gaps in how people interact with you and how Google translates what you're trying to say. Until they match, I don't think you're really going to find that exponential success.
That's great advice. All right. Any last books, conferences, blogs, anything you recommend people check out?
Well, I know there's a product-led SEO book coming out at some point, which I am trying to pre-order. I'm trying to pre-order as soon as possible. But no. So I read all the blogs, all the things. The best thing I think a person could do is understand that SEO is different for every industry. I'm in a software industry, but technically I'm in, acquisition SEO. So being able to understand that SEO is, there's definitely there's some aspects that you need to know for all industries, but how you apply what you know into your own industry is the difference between somebody that is, giving you deliverables that is like, hey, here's keyword research, and there's somebody that's bringing in revenue to a company. Those are massively different. So I would say, learn the fundamentals, and then you need to be vigilant about discovering how those fundamentals interact in your specific section of SEO.
It's brilliant advice. All right. Well, thanks, Jake. It's great to have this conversation. I'm sure people can get a lot out of this. If they want to get in touch, they can find you on LinkedIn. Do you have a blog? Anything else you want to share?
Yeah, LinkedIn's fine.
Okay. And eventually you're going to have a book on your career of going from the sports field to the back office and making it an SEO.
Yeah, that definitely sounds like a bestseller to me.
I'd buy it. All right. Thanks, Jake.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah.